Hi, this is the first of several videos that I'm going to be recording. This video is to welcome you to the course, and I'll be doing three things in this video. First of all, I'll be telling you a little bit about myself. Secondly, I'll be going over the course briefly, talking a little bit about the syllabus. And third, I'll be talking about some of the initial material that we're going to cover during the first few weeks of the class. Number one, my name is Jim Schwartz. I have a PhD in U.S. history from Wayne State University. I have a master's actually in British history from Manchester, University of Manchester in England. Also, I was a journalist for many years in a previous life. I wrote for McGraw-Hill magazines about business, science, and technology. I was born in Chicago in Rogers Park. I'm still an avid Blackhawks fan, and I also root for the Bears and the White Sox or the Cubs, depending on who's doing well that particular season. Grew up in New York, moved back to Michigan to work for McGraw-Hill and did my graduate work there, and then came to Illinois to teach at Eastern. I have a daughter, a grown daughter, just graduated from college in 2010. She's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, trying to figure out what to do next. At the moment, she's renting canoes on the Huron River. I have a stepdaughter in Chicago who's an attorney, and a stepson in California who's a writer. I also have a 14-year-old lab who's bugging me at the moment because it's almost time to eat and time for her walk. Okay, number two, let me tell you a little bit about the course. It's a survey course, so we'll be covering a lot of ground. We'll be going from 1877, which is what people normally regard as the end of Reconstruction. Reconstruction being that period that came after the Civil War. It's the period during which in which Americans are trying to put the nation back together again after this incredibly bloody Civil War, and great debates about how to do that. Okay, and we'll go all the way up till the present, or as close to the present as we can possibly get. There will be a series of writing assignments. Most weeks you'll be doing short written assignments. That'll be worth 5 points at the most for each of these small assignments. And in most of these assignments, I'll be asking you to analyze and to interpret primary sources. Primary sources are evidence from the period. It can be letters, it could be diaries, it could be paintings, it could be architecture. Later on in the semester, it could be films, or it could also be novels, of course. In addition to those short assignments, I'll be asking you to write a midterm, which will be a take-home exam, and I'll be asking you to write a final as well. There are some guidelines that you will see in the syllabus, and I urge you to read the syllabus closely in terms of writing, in terms of evidence. In all of these assignments, it's important to avoid vague generalities. FDR was a great president who brought freedom and prosperity as a vague generality. Remember, you're not on a talk show host, and remember, you're not running for political office. So be concrete, provide detailed evidence. FDR was a great president because of his economic policy, which involved elements X, Y, and Z, is a much better way to go than the vague generality. Plagiarism, it's important to say something about plagiarism. It's a problem plaguing not only students, but increasingly academics and professional writers as well. And plagiarism, to define it simply, is just the theft of words or ideas. Basically, what you need to do when you're writing is give credit where credit is due. If you're taking somebody else's words, you need to put quotations around those words. So, and you also need to cite your source, obviously, so that we know where those words came from. Even if you're paraphrasing meaning to take somebody else's words and put them into your own language. So instead of Joe Blow says, it was a beautiful day, to paraphrase that, I say it was warm and sunny out. That would be a paraphrase. You don't need quotation marks for that, obviously, but what you do need to do is cite your source. I need to know where you got that idea or that information from. Some of you have not taken a history class in a long time. If that's the case, it's important for you to stay in touch with me. I advise you to give me weekly emails. These are not required, they're voluntary, but for some of you who haven't had history in a while, it may be helpful to do that. Tell me how things are going. Are you understanding things? Are there points in the reading that are confusing or difficult to follow? I will do my best to clarify those. There's also, as you'll see on the syllabus, areas for self-testing. There's an online version of the textbook has online resources to help you with that. In addition, I've got questions after each week's assignment from the text that will help you determine how well you're getting things. Okay, so that's the course in a nutshell. The first few weeks of the course, we're going to be looking at great change that occurred in the late 19th and early 20th century. The first great change, of course, is the Civil War, and initially what we're going to be looking at is Reconstruction, and efforts by Americans to determine how to put the country back together again after this very bloody Civil War. Central to that period is a struggle of African Americans for equal rights, a struggle that, as you will see from the reading, did not succeed. The other great change that we'll be looking at is this is a period of incredible economic growth and great technological and industrial change. This is, some historians refer to this period as the Second Industrial Revolution, the first occurring in England in the mid and late 18th century. This is when steel is developed, electricity comes into its own during this period, new sources of power, the automobile comes of age, and great economic wealth is created. But as you'll see from the reading, that wealth is not equally distributed. There are people at the top of the social structure who become enormously wealthy, and great poverty at the bottom. And what we'll see in response to industrialization, well, what we'll be looking at really is the causes of industrialization and its effects. And what we'll be seeing are a number of dramatic effects. Urbanization, a tremendous growth in cities, especially places like Pittsburgh and Chicago. Additionally, new waves of immigration and immigrants coming from Eastern Europe and Southern Europe. I'm guessing many of your ancestors came to the United States during that period. Certainly mine did. And in addition, great labor unrest, very violent strikes occurring in places like Pittsburgh and Chicago, and additionally 2 very important reform movements arose during this period, populism and progressivism. And we'll be looking at both of those. And finally, we'll be looking at U.S. expanding overseas, engaging in imperialism. Prior to that, the United States had expanded west across the North American continent, but what we'll be seeing after the Civil War is expansion overseas, into places like the Philippines, and the United States, as a result of this great wealth that's being produced, becoming an increasingly important world power as well. And that will take us to World War I and the beginning of the next section in the course. So that's it for now. Please contact me if there are questions, if there are problems, if there are things that you don't understand in terms of the reading, in terms of my assignments, and I will be happy to help you. Welcome to the course again.